Hello, Brain Damaged Philosopher here, and I'm especially brain damaged today because I hit my head pretty solidly, so I've got a bit of a headache. I'm actually doing this video to take my mind off the fact that I might just have lost all of the progress I made in the last 20 to 25 days. But, yeah, so I might not be the most articulate I've ever been in this video. Well, luckily for you guys, this is actually the second draft of a video that I've been trying to make since yesterday. So hopefully, since I've done some thinking and had a dry run for talking about this subject, the one that I'm going to cover in this video, that should make up for whatever missing neurons whatever neurons I've lost. So, in this video, I want to talk about the theistic argument that's commonly made that basically goes like this. Well, you tell them how you don't believe that their religion is true and whatever, and they go, sure, okay, but believing in this religion has really helped me or made me happier. So the thing about this argument is that on a factual basis, it's actually not that convincing. Whether a belief directly, makes you feel good or not has very little to do with whether it's actually true. The reason that this argument is interesting enough to garner a video from me is because of the specific pragmatist epistemology that I espouse. In any other epistemology, it would be much easier to deny that this argument has any weight at all. But from within my own epistemology, which I believe is the correct one, so, take that as you will, this argument actually requires a more nuanced response. Because essentially, the thing in my own pragmatist epistemology, I state that we care about truth because truth can allow us to live better, happier lives. So, the statement that believing in a certain religion makes a person happy, on its face seems to indicate that under my pragmatist epistemology, or under really any pragmatist epistemology, you should believe in that religion, whether or not it is objectively true by some sort of empiricist or evidentialist definition of truth. The reason I don't accept this argument, however, is for one primary reason. Whether a belief makes you happy has no bearing on whether it is the optimal belief to hold, even from the standpoint of happiness. What I mean by this is that the reason that I say in my own epistemology that we care about truth because it makes us happy, and then we select beliefs based on truth, instead of just saying that we select beliefs based on whether they make us happy, is that the truth criterion that interposes between the happiness and the belief in my epistemology allows me to do a sort of search of the space of possible beliefs that someone that directly selects beliefs based on whether they make them happy can't do. Essentially, my logic goes like this. If a belief is predictive and accurate, then that belief allows you to predict the outcomes of your actions and therefore act in ways that are effective in producing happiness, and also allow you to, those predictive and accurate beliefs also allow you to better prepare for changes in your environment by being able to predict your environment, and therefore preserve your happiness, or even take advantage of those changes to increase your happiness. So essentially, beliefs that are predictive and accurate are necessarily those beliefs that are maximally happiness aiding, because beliefs that are predictive and accurate give you the best tools to produce the happiness that you desire. And for beliefs that are not perfectly predictive and accurate, which I don't think there necessarily are any, you can still use this criteria by saying that to the degree that a belief is predictive and accurate, it is to that degree effective in helping you become happier. And so in this way, the criteria of predictivity and accurateness actually allow you to do an advanced search of the space of possible beliefs that allow you to find the optimal system of beliefs without having to actually adopt those beliefs and live with them in order to test them out. Or without having to rely on the sort of intuitive happiness that the belief itself gives you, quite aside from how the belief helps you actually operate within the world. Compare this with the sort of pragmatist epistemology that the theist is affirming by saying that it's okay for them to believe in their religion because the religion makes them happy. In this kind of direct pragmatist approach, they don't have a criteria to know ahead of time whether a belief will make them happy. A belief in the religion will make them happy. They have to try it out and live with it first. And it's impossible to try out and live with every form of religion and also every form of secular philosophy in order to find, the one that gives them maximal happiness. Furthermore, it doesn't give them the tools to construct their own beliefs from scratch that will maximize their happiness, because they won't have any way to know when they're constructing their beliefs whether those beliefs will give them the tools to make themselves happy. Oftentimes, as well, what they're actually affirming when they affirm this kind of direct pragmatism is not that they believe that their religion gives them the tools to make themselves happy, but instead that the very act of holding the belief itself is what makes them happy. The problem with this is that, first of all, having the tools to make yourself happy means that you can make yourself happy in all the different ways, materially and through understanding of yourself, through having predictive beliefs about your own psychology, psychologically, and all of the other components that go into happiness. They're saying that they don't care about that so much as the one particular kind of intuitive psychological happiness that's closer to aesthetic appreciation that they get from having this belief. And so essentially in this second version of the direct religious pragmatism, they're leaving aside even caring about something that could give them the tools to optimize their overall happiness, because they want to optimize this one component of their happiness. And the thing is that in response to this, they could say, well, I may be doing a greedy best first search of the problem space and just settling on the first belief system that makes me happy, whether or not there are other belief systems that could make me more happy. But in essence, I could say that that doesn't really give them an adverse effect. But the thing is that if they don't have a way to either construct their own beliefs for maximum effectiveness in making them happy, or have the sort of way that I have with indirect pragmatism to do that, or to explore the space of possible beliefs, and if they're also giving up the idea that religion could belief in the religion is giving them tools to be happier. So if they're only focusing on the intuitive, specific and niche happiness that holding the belief gives them, they have absolutely no tools to assess whether that belief is actually hurting them in some way that they won't realize until long down the road, or that they may never realize, in the same way that an abusive child doesn't realize that they were actually unhappy and that their parents weren't treating them right until, after they leave or after someone explains to them what's wrong with that parenting style. And so, to sum up the first part of my response then, having a sort of direct religious pragmatism where you accept a belief because the belief can make you happy is problematic, because it gives you no way to assess whether the belief is making you optimally happy, or and you are also laying aside the possibility that having the tools that an indirect kind of that having true beliefs give you to optimize your happiness, you're laying those aside. And yeah, so the other thing that I want to say about this is that many of the reasons that religious people give for why their religious beliefs make them happy are things that you could get outside of religion. So you could have that intuitive happiness and also the tools to make yourself happy that holding true beliefs could give you. Additionally, we know that religions often hold beliefs that are just simply wrong about human psychology or how the world works or how best to organize society or interact with others around you. And so, religious people are already, because they care about being happy, obviously, cherry picking what they actually take from their religion. And so, since they're already doing that, and they're doing that on the basis of what they believe is true and effective, the question becomes, why not, since that's sort of what's ultimately determining what you believe, your beliefs about what's true and what's effective are ultimately determining what you believe, why not just construct your own philosophy based wholesale on that ultimate arbiter, instead of trying to force religion to fit what you want, or trying to finagle yourself to fit into religion. Additionally, I would also like to point out that and this is a point that my friend Syed likes to make, because it's a very good point, that in addition, many of the ways that religions claim to provide happiness to their members are things that religion has, through cultural osmosis, even into the secular community, convinced us that we actually need in order to be happy. In other words, religion is the sickness as well as the medicine. It's giving us poison and then also giving us the antidote by convincing us that we need certain things that religions can give us, and then, stepping in to provide those things. For instance, the idea that we need some being that makes everything turn out to the good, or that is watching over us, or that can give our lives external purpose or meaning. Those are things that religion has convinced us that we need, that we really don't need. In fact, for some of those things that religion convinces us we need, it's actually, if you think about it from a position outside of being convinced of that, something that not only do we not need, but is sort of existentially horrifying to consider needing. For instance, a really good illustration of this is actually from Rick and Morty, a show which I sort of like, but I'm not a huge fan of, but I am a huge fan of this one scene, which is about the butter serving robot. Basically, the sentient robot is created by Rick and asks Rick what its purpose in life is, and he basically tells it to serve butter, and it just has this sort of despairing reaction to that. And if you think about it, that is how we should react to the idea that anything outside of us gives us purpose. Because something outside of us giving us purpose means that that purpose doesn't need to have anything to do with our own desires or wants or the things that seem meaningful to us or anything like that, right? A purpose from outside of us could be, totally only serving an entity outside of us that doesn't really care about us and, that we don't necessarily have to care about either. I mean, there's a reason that even when I was a Christian, I found the idea that the only purpose that Christians should have in life is to spread the gospel. This is called the Great Commission. I found this idea disturbing deeply because I didn't want to spread the gospel. That's not what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't want to have to finagle all the things that I actually wanted to do in order to fit with this goal that's been imposed on me from the outside. I wanted to choose and create my own goals and to follow them. And I had goals that were sort of built into me that I wanted to follow. I wanted to program, I wanted to write, I wanted to do philosophy, and I didn't want to have to force those things to come to a certain set of conclusions or to have to do those things in a way that they ended up serving this other goal. That's why as soon as I left my faith, I went into overdrive doing philosophy. Not only because my father had tried to convince me, since I could read, basically, that Christianity was the only philosophical system that could function, right? Not only did I want to prove that incorrect, because I knew it wasn't, but I also went into philosophical overdrive because I was finally free. I could follow the logic wherever it led, and it could be about any subject I wanted it to be about instead of just apologetics. Because, you see, in Christianity, there's no room for epistemology. There's no room for metaphysics. There's no room for phenomenology. There's no room for ethics. The only thing that you can do is be a theologian or an apologist. And, often those two are the same. And so, the closest thing you could get to actually doing interesting philosophy as a Christian really was to be an apologist. Even the great Christian philosophers, such as Alvin Plantinga, for instance, his entire work, led up to trying to prove that it's reasonable to be religious. And you can sort of see in his reasoning, the way he went about it, that was where he was sort of compelled to go from the beginning. Because if you're a Christian, where else are you going to go? And so the fact that religion has convinced us, even in the secular community, this is why you see the question, what is the meaning of life, so often in pop philosophy. The fact that religion has convinced us that we need an externally imposed purpose is kind of horrifying, but it's the most clear example of religion convincing us we need something that only religion can provide, and then stepping in to provide it and gaining control that way. So, yeah, to sum up, the kind of epistemology affirmed by the statement that it's okay to believe in religion if it makes you happier is an epistemology that will, almost guaranteed, lead to suboptimal beliefs that instead of giving you the tools to... it's an epistemology that does not give you the tools to find optimal beliefs or construct your own optimal beliefs. And instead of focusing on beliefs that give you the tools to make yourself happy and understand what makes you happy, it instead focuses on beliefs that directly make you happy. But simply holding a belief can't make all of you in every dimension happy the way that having the tools to understand yourself and make yourself happy can. So it's a suboptimal form of happiness in that sense, as well as the fact that, you won't have the tools to actually search the problem space. So that's my main response to the argument. Now, often at this juncture, religious people will bring up the Pew Research Center study that said that actively religious people, those who go to church at least twice a month, I believe, are some statistically significant amount more likely to self-report as happy. There are a couple problems that I have with the study, though. For one thing, in many Christian denominations, admitting that you are unhappy is a sign of incomplete faith and or sin. Essentially, since everything goes according to God's plan, and even the trials are supposed to make you better, you should be able to rejoice even in terrible hardship. And admitting that you cannot is an admission that your faith doesn't stand up to the at least apparent faith of your peers and the standard of faith that your religion holds you to. And so that right there means that people that really buy into religion are more likely to report themselves happy because they have to convince themselves and convince others that they are happy, and lest they be viewed as sinful or lacking in faith. They also believe that if you have a real connection with God, that too will make you happier even in the really hard times. And so admitting that you are very unhappy in a hard time is to admit that you don't have a close connection with God. So right there, that's almost enough to invalidate the results. But there are other problems with this. Another problem is that these studies were done in the United States, which is a 70% majority Christian nation, which means, and even people who aren't Christian are more likely to be accepted by Christians than atheists, because Christians can understand being part of a different faith more than they can understand not having any faith at all, and even being, possibly somewhat hostile to faith. And so if you live in a nation that constantly talks about faith and thinks of faith as a good thing, right? People are more likely to think that someone is safer if they're religious, and that, they're less likely to cause a crime, even though it's the reverse. If you live in a nation like that is mostly against you, mostly thinks that you are a bad person, and mostly does not share your beliefs, of course you're going to be more unhappy than the people that actually, share those beliefs, right? I would imagine that if you actually took another minority religion, maybe even Judaism, and pulled it separately from the other religions, they may end up looking, slightly more unhappy than Christians for that reason, right? But even then, again, people are used to thinking of atheists as bad people, whereas people from other religions as simply misguided, unless there's other things going on, like with Islam. Another problem with this study is that humans are social creatures. So, of course, people that regularly go to a group gathering with their friends and family where they all chant together and explicitly share common beliefs and talk about those shared common beliefs and have common rituals, of course that's going to make you happier. That doesn't mean, however, that first of all, that you can't get that from other things, right? The Saturday night football game, for instance. And it also, doesn't mean that that getting that kind of happiness out of your belief system is actually, means that you should not care about any other, reason that your belief system might be bad or incorrect. So I would imagine that if you took the same data and adjusted for sociability, you would find that the atheists who are just as social as the Christians are also just as happy as the Christians, if not more so. This is especially the case since, people's faith often makes them, very upset and sad and hate themselves for different reasons. Yeah, so anyway, I think that's enough for this video. Talk to you guys in the next one.